Ray, how long have you been married for?
31 years.
How many kids do you have?
4.
How old are they?
47, 27, 21, and 12.
That's awesome. I never heard it like that. Wow. Fucking heavy, man.
I'm still shooting bullets, baby.
Everyone, welcome to the Filthy Animals podcast. Today is a very special episode, clearly because we're not even doing Zoom. We're doing something very special today. Today I have Raymond J on the podcast with us. And I also have Kendra and Elyusha. Elyusha is my film professor and mentor, and he produced Filthy Animals. Kendra is my wife. She also produced Filthy Animals. And Ray is a veteran actor who gave me an opportunity to direct him in my first feature film. Welcome on the show, Ray, Elyusha, and Kendra.
Thank you.
Ray, how's your day?
Oh, gosh. That's a tough one.
How's your day,
How
man?
was my day? Well, at first I was a little bit concerned about bringing my dog. I thought to myself, am I complicating this event? Because I will have to do a podcast and I do have to pay attention to what's going on. And am I going to complicate it? And what I felt was the dog is going to feel better being with me rather than if I left the dog in my house. And that was my wife's advice, and she went to Las Vegas to look at a house which a friend of hers is going to buy, so she's not around. So it's my responsibility to take care of this animal. So I'm driving, and I'm driving over here, and I forgot that it's a bit of a journey.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and I'm driving on Hawthorne.
Yeah.
And the first thing I wasn't quite sure about was getting to the 405 from La Cienega. It had been a while before I took La Cienega instead of Santa Monica. I don't want to bore you with all that. But I was a little bit sort of dealing with the dog who was like going on the front seat.
Yeah.
And I thought she must be a bit thirsty, and I was a little concerned about that. And, you know, man and dog and all that.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be late, and I was keeping an eye on the clock, and I didn't want to make a wrong turn, and you know, and I made it on time.
You did.
I did.
You did.
And after that, it's like water off a duck's ass.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Love it.
I did my part. Now all I have to do is talk.
Yeah, a little bit of chit chat.
Yeah. So that's the answer to your question.
Very cool. Ray, how long have you been married for?
31 years.
How many kids do you have?
4.
How old are they?
47, 27, 21, and 12.
That's awesome. I never heard it like that. Wow. Fucking heavy, man.
I'm still shooting bullets, baby. 81 years old.
Clearly.
Yeah. What's the secret?
My secret for what? To have 4 kids? Anybody can do that, man, you know. It's what you do with the kids after they get born, you know. What is my secret? I'll tell you what my secret is. Don't be violent. Don't drink. Don't do drugs. Do a life that you believe in. And in doing all of those, you're not going to hurt your kids. You're not going to be drunk in front of your kids. You're not going to be doing drugs in front of your kids. And you're going to be doing something you love, which the kid hopefully will pick up. That you know, my father really loves to act. My father really loves to paint and make art. My father, maybe I should do something that I really love. The worst thing I think you can do with a kid is come at him aggressively and say, you gotta do this, you should do that, you should do. That's not gonna work. And I know that because my father did that to me. And that doesn't work, you know. I don't yell at the kids, and I don't hit them.
You don't, right?
No, sir.
What about a backhand doesn't count? A forward's not good, no?
No, I don't do that with my wife either.
No. Yeah.
You know, the reason why I'm saying that is I grew up in that kind of environment. Yeah. I saw blood, man, on my mother, you know. And that type of environment kills, you know. My two sisters were alcoholics, one of whom died from alcoholism. You know, it'll destroy the kids, that kind of environment. So, you know, I'm really, hey, look, after I say what I say, it's still a complex issue. What do you do with your kids? You know, I got one boy who graduated from Amherst College, played basketball. Amherst is really a fine school. Went to Andover for 1 year before he went to college. Made all New England as a basketball player. Now, he doesn't know what he wants to do. And he's working in a restaurant. I'll tell you another thing. Today, being 20 years old, or 18, or 16, look what you have to contend with. The drugs are prevalent. There were no drugs around when I was growing up. You know, only alcohol. You know.
A little bit of weed or no?
No weed.
Okay.
I didn't know what weed was. I never saw weed all through college.
When was the first time you saw it?
When I started working with the Open Theater, and by that time I was somewhere in the vicinity of 28 years old.
Wow.
Oh, I saw it when I was 23 years old when I was working with the Living Theater. Rufus Collins, one of the actors, I was doing a play called The Brig, which actually was getting a lot of play in New York. And theater was on 14th Street, and the Living Theater was kind of a famous company. Eventually they went to Europe. I didn't go with them. But they were full of crazy anarchists, and they, Rufus Collins offered me a joint. He said, come on, man, this will make you feel good. You seemed a little tense to me, which was true. I was a little tense. And I said, no, man, I'm not into it. I didn't even smoke cigarettes at that time, you know, and he's trying to turn me on with a joint. And this is before the play opens. I'm going to be on stage in 10 minutes. Yeah. Right? Yeah. This guy would smoke a joint before we went on stage.
Yeah.
You know, not only Rufus Collins, but others too.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole friggin' cast was stoned.
Cool.
And then, I don't know if you ever heard the Living Theater, but the Living Theater was a famous company. What happened was they emigrated to Europe, and they lived like vagabonds, itinerant, you know. They traveled all through Europe, and they became very, very famous. And they'd go to Avignon and spend the summer there, and they had a following, and they had long hair, and they were smoking dope, and some of them were doing heroin, and Judith and Julian Beck were famous directors. They directed this company. This was a very famous company. And, you know, when I worked with them, I was fresh out of college. I was built like a brick shit house. I had muscles on top of my muscles from playing football and running track and, you know, at Brown University. And, you know, I was so healthy. I didn't smoke and, you know, you know, Rufus said, hey, man, try this. You seem a little tense, man, you know. And the brig is about Marines, so I looked like a Marine, and I was perfect for the part. So I did the part okay. Yeah. But I didn't fit in socially with this group of hippies before the hippie period really began. It was like 1963 or something like that.
Cool.
And, you know, oh, some of them thought I was a cop, an undercover cop. Yeah. They thought I was trying to get info about drugs or whatever, you know. They didn't want to talk to me, you know. Like, there was a guy named Jim Anderson. He was a black man. He was highly suspicious of me. And, awesome. You know, in the play, they have to punch you in the stomach. Okay. And Jim would really punch me. And, yeah, it was quite an experience, you know. Whatever. I mean, that was a famous company, man.
Yeah.
You know, Living Theater.
Very well respected.
Yeah.
You talked about working out and muscles on muscles. Did you ever see or try steroids?
No.
Did you ever see it? Anybody shooting up their ass or anything?
No.
Cool. Or any like D-ball packets and they're sucking on D-ball?
No, you know, I got built like that because I played 4 varsity sports in high school.
Yeah.
I started lifting weights when I was 14.
Awesome.
The influence of a coach who went to the Olympics, Irving Munshon, who became the head track coach at the University of Pennsylvania. He's dead now. He died when he was 96. Damn. But he taught me how to high jump and all this stuff, and I won, me, I'm sorry.
Ray.
Yeah.
Ray.
Yeah.
We're here to interview you.
Yeah.
So you gotta talk about yourself.
I won the New York State high jumping championship.
Fucking praise it, man. I love it.
1957. Were people alive then? I jumped 6'4" with a Western roll, and I won the state championship. Big, you know.
That's
they
awesome.
hadn't jumped 7 yet.
That's awesome.
Yeah. John
really
Thomas, the first dude to jump 7.
It's insane.
Whatever. So, you know, that's where I got the physique and everything. But it was my identity. I also got a scholarship to friggin' Brown University. Yeah. And, you know, from there, you had to study. I did the sports thing and everything and all of that. But you lose your scholarship at Brown if you don't get good grades. They take it away from you. Which happened to me, by the way, 1 semester. It was tough there, discipline-wise. I mean, I had to write papers. I didn't know how to write a paper. Mm-hmm. You know, today I write books because of Brown, because of also other influences like my mother and all that. But I grew up there, you know, and I'm a junior, and some professor comes up to me and says to me, we're looking for a football player to play the part of Hal in William Inge's play, Picnic. And I looked at him like, what are you, me? You want me to be in a play? I could barely talk. Yeah. And long story short, he said, come down to my class and see if you like my class. And I came down and I looked at, and they were acting in the class and they're talking about it and everything. And I'm saying to myself, you see, I had the influence from my mother, who was an artist. Yeah. I had an alcoholic madman for a father, physical, punch, you know, fist fights. One time he was on television because he got beaten up so badly because he passed a racial remark to a black bunch of guys, and they beat him up, and his face was out, you know, eyes closed, broken nose, broken jaw, the whole 9 yards, you know. Why am I talking about that? My mother, gay. My mother was a gay woman.
Can you talk about how you found out?
She told me.
And then
How does anybody find out? What am I going to do? Jump into her bed?
Was it during or after the fact?
Well, there was a woman who came over to the house on a regular basis. Her name was Maisie.
Okay.
And Maisie was obviously a very close friend when I was in high school, you know, and she was very nice to me. Hi, Ray, how you doing? You know. Well, Maisie had a butch haircut like a man with a part in it, and she wore men's suits and a tassel with a collar and men's shoes. And, you know, I didn't care. You know, my mother was happy and my father was out of his mind. And, you know, it was like my mother was my friend. And I didn't give a shit who she liked or whatever, you know. Long story short, finally, my mother told me. We had that kind of communication.
Yeah.
And I was not a homophobe ever because of my mother. My mother taught me how to think at a time when homophobia was rampant, where people didn't know any better, particularly in a little town where we grew up, you know, on Long Island, Lynbrook, Long Island. Nobody knew nothing. You know, if you were gay, you were a freak.
Right.
And we're talking 40s and 50s, you know, a very backward way of looking at that whole subject. But because of my mother, I was advanced in my thinking, and I didn't even know it.
Yeah.
You know, when gay liberation happened back in the 60s, what, are you kidding me? That was like old hat to me. I didn't give a shit about that. I know all about that, man. You know, you're not changing me.
Yeah.
I had a lot of friends, you know, it didn't matter, you know, whatever. Also, I knew, you know, who I was, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
When I was growing up, and I was maybe like 12 years old, you know, around that age, my mom would tell me, you know, if you're gay, I'll still love you. You know that, right?
Your mother would say that?
Yeah, and I had moments where I was like, she knows something I don't. You know, like,
yeah.
And you kind of go,
why would she say
what do
that?
I gotta? Yeah, am I? You know, yeah. She's a trip. You know, my mom's cool. She's funny.
Yeah. Actually, I wrote essays and stories for about 35 years. Mostly stories that were centered on my experience as an actor. And there is one story about my mother. There's a book I've published on Amazon called Never a Viable Alternative. And it's a memoir of my life. And there's a chapter in it about my mother, because eventually what happened, we had such a strong bond and communication between each other that I directed a company. I founded my own company in New York, a theater company, and somewhere around that time we had a discussion, and there was an area of that discussion that was highly personal that she didn't want to talk about, and she told me. And the following day she wrote me this long letter which discussed the issue that she didn't want to talk about. And I thought the letter, I still have the letter was so profound, it was so deep. And I was working on a play, an original play, which I wrote with my company, and I asked her if she would read the letter in the play. And, she said, "Oh, Raymond, I don't know." She had never acted in her whole life. She was 61 years old, and she was just scared. And at first she'd get on stage and she'd say, "Dear son, I cannot believe it was I who, when you were little, once," and she would read the letter, and eventually she memorized the letter, and she would stand out there. She had tension in her shoulders, and she'd go, "Dear son, I cannot believe it was I who, when you were little, once," and she was like magic on stage. And she would wander on stage and read part of the letter and memorize, perform part of the letter, and then she would walk off stage, and later on during the play she would walk back on and do another section of the play, and she kept on
Yeah, it's awesome.
yeah, and she got into it. So I directed her in 3 plays. She stayed. She liked it. She was 61 when she began.
What's it like before the show? In the backstage? Do you guys get ready next to each other? Are you guys talking? Are you guys isolated? What's it like?
I'm not backstage.
Oh. You doing pull-ups somewhere? What are you doing?
I'm up on the lighting booth, making sure the lights are right. And I'm going to go down to the theater when the play begins and sit in the back row and take notes.
Cool. I love it.
And after the production, after the night is over, I'll read the notes to the actors. So the next night, they use the notes in advance. They have it in their head. And that's what the format was.
Good.
I'm not giving a pep talk to the actors. They're grown people, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. It was fun. I could also watch the audience from the lighting booth or the last row,
Yeah.
But my mother was, then, I got her an agent, Jerry Kahn, in New York, and Jerry Kahn began to send her out to, should I
You're good, Ray.
do something?
You're good, Ray.
Jerry Kahn began to send her out for commercials, and she picked up a lot of commercials. By now she's like 65, 66, and she did 20 movies.
That's awesome.
Yeah. She had a big part in a movie called Fat Chance. She had a part in a Liza Minnelli and Dudley Moore film, a cameo role. And she kept on appearing in these movies, and the neighbors began to pick up on it. Also, she was in soap operas and commercials. And before you know it, this very humble kind of neighborhood, lower middle class. By that time, my father was dead, and she was living in the house by herself. But she was a mini celebrity from being on television and so on. She acted from age 61 to age 88. And her life was rejuvenated. Up to that point, she had been a published writer.
I have a question for you. What was it like when your father passed away for you and your mom? Did you guys go to the funeral? Were you guys sad? Was it bittersweet? What was it like?
I didn't feel anything.
Gnarly.
And I did go to the funeral.
How was your mom?
She was completely brokenhearted, continuously crying. She had moved out. She no longer wanted to live with him.
Right.
She left. And I'll never forget this. When he died, she was bawling, crying, and she said, I didn't mean for him to die. Can you beat that?
So it sounds like maybe she felt a little unnecessary guilt that she left, and then that was his downfall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you mean you felt nothing though? Did you shed a tear? Did it come out in
Well,
performances?
I'll tell you something, man. When you grow up in that kind of violent environment, what you learn to do is you cut your feelings off, and you get motivated. I was a football player, and I was motivated. I was going to go to college by hook or crook, and my ticket was football. I'm the only one in my whole family who went to college. My mother, my father, my two sisters. I'm the only one. I got a free ride to Brown University. Why did I get into Brown? Because I studied like a maniac. Not because I was smart. I studied. I knew what I wanted. Now, when I go to my mother's funeral, by that time I had locked into this persona where you don't feel, all you do is follow your goals. And you go after it like an animal. You go on a football field, this is scholarship time, baby. I'm not playing around. Nobody's going to pay for my college. I got to play well. I got to do it, you know. And that's the way I was built emotionally. Otherwise, I'm not going to survive because nobody's going to help me. That's the way it was. It was like dog eat dog. End of story. So, you know, then I go to Brown, and I'm playing 3 sports as a freshman, I'm playing 3 sports as a sophomore, and I go into my junior year, and I'm doing pretty well. I had a rough semester because that work at Brown was tough, rigorous. I had to write paper. I didn't know how to write a paper, you know. So what happens is some professor comes up to me, Jim Barnhill was his name. He says, we're doing William Inge's play, Picnic, which I had seen in a movie with William Holden and Kim Novak. What a beautiful movie. It's about an old football player. He's over the hill, and they fall in love, and he's failed at everything in his whole life, right? Well, Jim Barnhill is a professor. He's putting together a production of Picnic written by William Inge. He asked me if I want to play the football player. He's got to cast it within the college population. So I'm too young for the role, but I'm a football player. And I said to him, I don't know, man. I don't do that. I don't know how to do that. He said, well, come to my class. I go to the class. I really like what I see. And also, I got in my head this little element from my mother, respect for art. Oh, another thing. My mother, she doesn't go out and date with my father. They're like, oil and water. On Friday, and sometimes Friday and Saturday nights, she takes me to the movies when I'm that high. And what am I watching? Montgomery Clift in Place Under the Sun. Marlon Brando in Streetcar Named Desire. Marlon Brando in The Men. Marlon Brando in The Wild One. Marlon Brando in On the Waterfront. Lee J. Cobb. And I'm watching these. Also, naturalism is beginning to take hold in film. Previous to that, you have guys like Cary Grant, who's a lovely man and beautiful, beautiful to watch. But most of these dudes are talking like this. And the microphone doesn't really have any kind of respect for space. It's all about loudness or softness. And suddenly, the technical part of filmmaking particularly with the sound, is now becoming more sophisticated. And you have Lee Strasberg and naturalism, the Actors Studio taking hold in New York, and Brando and Montgomery Clift and Marilyn Monroe are studying with Lee Strasberg, and these performances are like real people. It's like watching a documentary all of a sudden. These people are not announcing the words anymore. They're mumbling, they're talking softly, they're communicating. And it's like I'm watching a documentary of the waterfront, you know? It's like, whoa, this is real. And I'm only a kid. I'm like 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. My mother's taking me to the movies.
Awesome.
And she's talking about these actors and, you know, how she loved Montgomery Clift. He was so sensitive. And you know, the other thing was that, you know, related to the subject we were talking about before, Montgomery Clift was a gay man. And my mother knew it. And she talked to me about it. And she loved him. And I loved him. And I didn't give a shit if he was whatever, you know. And that was part of my upbringing, you know. It was like tolerance for a segment of our population that at that time was ostracized, and they had to live underground. They had to hide who they were. And yet, a huge population of musicians and actors were gay. But they had to hide it.
Yeah.
People like Montgomery Clift has to walk around, you know, a shadow of who he is. And sure, he drank. You know, who the hell wouldn't? He died young, you know. If you weren't, and also another dynamic that was happening right before that in the 50s, you had John Wayne as macho as they come. The paradigm of masculinity was John Wayne, you know, or Robert Mitchum, who, by the way, I like Robert Mitchum's work, and, you know, all these guys, I like them all, you know.
Love and Hate?
Yeah, remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
That was good.
Night of the Hunter?
Yeah. That's right. You saw that. You know, my mother took me to see that movie.
I bet that was amazing to see in theater.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
My mother took me. My mother took me to see so many of those great movies. You know, On the Waterfront, we saw it together. We saw Streetcar, you know. So,
what was the movie theater you guys would go to?
Oh, the Century, up on, what street was that? Merrick Road in Lynbrook, Long Island.
Mm.
Nice.
Or we would go to the Arcade Theater, which was 14 cents.
That's awesome.
And the Century was 25 cents.
But popcorn was still like $10, $5.
I don't really know. I don't think we had the money for the popcorn, but
I'd like to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to open it up to these two a little bit. What about the first time you went to see live performances in theater? The very first time, was that at college, or was that younger, or any times with your mom? Did you
Damn Yankees on Broadway with Gwen Verdon, and I don't know what guy.
Okay.
But I believe I was in high school, and I don't quite remember how I ended up seeing that show. It didn't prompt an interest in me.
Okay.
I recognized the skill,
Yeah.
you know. But that was my first live theater.
Cool.
Gwen Verdon in Damn Yankees, and it didn't generate in me the same kind of interest that movies did.
Cool.
But I did respect it, and I appreciated being there. And I forget the circumstance why I was there.
It's probably for a girl, Ray.
Pardon me?
It's probably for a girl.
No. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let Elyusha ask a question
Yes.
and kind of turn it to him for a little bit.
I have a lot of questions, not just one. And a lot of it actually is based off your own writing. So Barbara Constance Berry, that essay you wrote, remember that one?
You read that?
I did.
Right.
And you had a lot of words in there that I'm sure you remember it, but I'm going to read your words back to you. And I want to know more about what those words mean.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Now that essay
Yeah.
is one of the chapters in my memoir.
Mm-hmm. I believe it because the way you write it, it's very, it's easy to visualize everything. So you can tell it comes from the heart and memory and
It
all the
did come
different
from
things.
the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? The great thing about acting is that you can't be anything but from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
You learn how to be truthful if you take it for real. And it's not a shame. You don't have to be ashamed. The truth is a power. And you don't have to be ashamed. I'll talk about, okay, and it's very personal. I don't give a shit. Because it's real. It's friggin' real. And what are you going to do about it, huh? You know, and you know when when I'm lying, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the other thing would be a lie of trying to cover it up, and I'd rather be somebody else aside from who I am.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't work.
One of the things I read in there was that fishing was your first love.
Yeah.
But then you, after a certain time, decided that it was not anymore. You didn't care for it.
Yeah, I know exactly what happened because I've thought about it recently.
Yeah, what happened?
Well, here's the deal. I had this friend named Joel Langdon. He was a big kid. He's older than I. He might have been maybe 15 and I was 12. And we fished every summer, every day in a lake called Hendrickson's Pit. And there was a smaller lake we called the Small Pit. And we fished for carp with a bamboo pole and a line with a piece of cork. And we'd take my mother's nylon stocking and put bread inside the nylon stocking, mix it up with dough and vanilla, and put it into the nylon stocking, and then tie the nylon stocking to a 2x4 that went like that, and throw it out there, and the carp would come and suck on the nylon stocking. And then Joel and I would swing with our bamboo poles, our line out there, and we could catch 110 carp in one day. And carp change color. They when they're younger or at a certain season, they're yellow in the belly and dark on the back. And then they begin to get some orange. And they get spots of orange with the black. And then they get all gold and yellow. And they're goldfish, but they're big. And then they turn white and red. And I don't know if it's seasonal or age related, but you know, we had names for all of them. You know, like a red and white one was, a black and orange one was a Turner. A Goldie was all gold. A pearly red was half red and half white. And a pearly was all white. And these fish were, you know, like big, you know, goldfish, you know, not like that. They were big, you know. And we stocked another pond. And my friend Joel and I got along real well. We also dug a lot of tunnels in these hills, and it was very rural and very sort of primitive, and I'd be gone all day and nobody would know where I was. It didn't matter. We weren't doing anything bad, except maybe once in a while we'd new housing development, we'd take lumber and we'd build a shack. We built 2 shacks and Joel's brother, Donald, was an expert carpenter, and he helped us. And there was one window in it, a door we locked. The owner of the land burned the thing down. But it was a real shack. It had a roof. We had shingles. It was for real. And so I was fishing. Now, we would also do saltwater fishing. And we go out to the bay, Hewlett Point, and catch fluke and flounder. The other thing is, we'd rent a boat and we'd go out there. And Joel was a big, strong guy. He came from a very dysfunctional family. And I used to go over there and sit in the living room. And the names of the brothers were, there was only a mother. The father had died. But the brothers' names were Tick, Ban, Lord, Joel, Donald. There was a sister named Alice, and like Tick would sit in a chair like that and look at the baseball games during the summer with a can of beer. And by the end of the afternoon, he was a carpenter, and he'd be out of work or something. He wouldn't be working, sometimes for a number of days, and he'd drink the beer and he'd get drunk, And then he'd get pissed off. He didn't like Joel, his brother, his younger brother. And he'd take the beer can and throw it. This is in the living room, right? Yeah. And he called him Bloom Gut. Hey, Bloom Gut, because Joel was a little heavy. Joel got depressed one time, and I came over there and I said, "Come on, Joel, let's go, man. We'll go fishing." He said, "No, I don't want to do it." I came the next day. "No, I don't want to go." "Come on, man, you want to go?" And the next day. Pretty soon, I stopped going there, and I went down to Marion Street, the football field, and the guys playing down there. And I don't know what happened, but suddenly I wanted to be a football player. I was young. And you know what happened? School began, and Joel came up to me after school with we had these bait made out of bread and vanilla, and it was white. And he had a big ball of it. He said, "Come on, let's go, we'll go fishing." And I looked at him, and he had stood me up. He didn't want to go for like weeks. And I found something else. Mm-hmm. And I said, "No, man, I'm going down to Marion Street. I'm going to play football." And he was disappointed. And he said, "Oh, okay." And he went his way, and I went my way. By that time, my interests switched. Yeah. And it hurt him. We were no longer close. And boy, did we have adventures, in the wild rural areas with water and bulrushes. And we had 3 boats. We had a tin canoe that leaked, and we pitched it up with tar. And we had a mud scow that was 16 feet long that we sawed the bow off the front and patched it up with a board and tried to prevent leaks. And we had a rubber life raft, and we could go way out in the middle of the lake, and it was adventurous for a kid. It was really adventurous, Mm-hmm. It was wild. You asked me about fishing.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'll tell you one other thing. We'd catch these carp with a bushel bass and knock out the bottom, right? Go into the water up to here. And here's how you move in the water, right? You have a bushel basket with no bottom, right? And you walk like this. And these carp would be up, and they'd sun themselves, and you barely move, and you go like that, and you got that bushel basket with the bottom out, and you go there, and you go boom, And that fish should be inside that bushel basket. And you reach in with your hand, you got a pail right here on your hip that's tied to you. And they called it jamming, or Joel did. It was called jamming. And you could catch, a lot of these carp and sunfish too. And, it was a very exciting outside type of involvement for a kid. It was wild. We were all by ourselves. We made tree huts. And of course what happened was that the whole, like Hendrickson's Pit, now there are big ranch houses built around it, and they feature the lake as if that's the reason why you should buy this expensive house. And they wouldn't let us kids go in there, and whatever.
Would you guys catch and release or eat them?
No, we wouldn't eat those, but when we did saltwater fishing, we would eat them.
Cool.
Fluke and flounder.
Nice.
And eels. You don't like eels?
I just had an experience of the eel biting me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'll say it quick.
They're wild.
They're for me
And slimy.
and they're like snakes, but in the water essentially, right? But I in an aquarium once, I was feeding a bunch of fish and I wasn't paying attention, and the eel came up and it bit the tip of my finger, and I was probably like 6 or 7 years old,
Yeah.
In the morning, Ray, I woke up to this. It hopped out of the tank, dead on the ground.
What?
I know, what the fuck? I know. I, in my head to this day, think that the eel wanted to finish the job, jumped out of the water, and then realized I'm fucked, I don't know what happened. Or in my head, and I'm secretly evil, like the Omen or something, in my sleep, I walked down, I like caught it, slapped it on the ground, and then pretended but it's weird. I know.
There's something macabre about the whole
When I told my mom,
picture of it.
when I told my mom, she goes, "That really happened that way." Yeah, you're right. She's like, "That was weird."
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway,
Where did you go?
I grew up in the South Bay, and I grew up in Torrance and Palos Verdes, and I also at one point I lived in Redondo Beach, Hermosa Beach, and Palm Desert.
Okay.
Yeah. I grew up with a single mom.
Oh, really?
Yeah, mom had some boyfriends.
Where was your father?
My father, okay, I probably gotta edit this stuff out. But my, it's
Not
just,
really. When I decided to become an actor, I couldn't tell my father what I wanted to do because I was afraid of his reaction.
Yeah.
He was so limited.
Yeah.
An actor? What are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I remember one time when I was teaching English in a high school, it was Christmas vacation. I went back to the house. I was only 23. And I went to the basement every day and painted. I was painting maybe that picture. I don't know.
Yeah.
And he didn't like it.
Yeah.
That I was spending hours down there painting. He didn't like it. He said to me, "You're in a rut."
Yeah.
He didn't like it, And I never went back to that house again. That was the end of it. Good riddance, What's the next question?
Yep, exactly. Elyusha's
So some of these, again, these are your own words I'm reading back to you.
Say what?
Some of these are your own words I'll be reading back to you. So you said something very unique, and I think it was in relation to seeing your mom, because you're visiting her in that writing, right? Barbara Constance Berry. It's about you coming to see your mom, right? And you said something in relation to seeing her, but it also says something maybe about you and maybe getting into performing. You said, "I cannot trust myself when it comes to showing up. I've been known to change my mind. When that happens, I leave everyone in a lurch. I've been known to disappoint people. My promises are not always kept, but I do the best I can." And I thought that was unique because the whole process of acting depends on showing up.
Of course.
And I was wondering, is that one of the reasons why you maybe got into acting, was because it kind of forces you to show up and be there, as opposed to sometimes you back
The answer
away?
to that question is no. The reason I got into acting was because I had an inordinate need to be in front of people. And the reason I needed to be in front of people was because I needed attention. And the reason I needed attention was because I couldn't do it with words through conversation for a period of my life, and I was enormously, believe it or not, shy. I mean, really shy. Wow, have I changed. But it's really true. I mean, I was so shy that in the 3rd grade, I would piss in my pants because I was shy to raise my hand and say to the teacher, I want to go to the bathroom. Can you believe that shit? And there'd be a puddle under my fucking seat. I mean, we're talking pain, man, you know? I was like less than. That's my roots. I was less. And I think acting provided a way to be part of that idealized population of people who play roles in movies. Movies are the idealized world of America, and maybe Europe, I don't know. But I know in America you went to see Elizabeth Taylor to dream of what life could be like if I were a woman like that, or Marlon Brando, or John Wayne. You know, that's a real man. Maybe I could be somewhat like that. These paradigms of masculinity and femininity that were shown to us, particularly when it was great writing. That's why I needed the attention, baby. That's why I did it. I was inept. I didn't have the ability, but I looked good as a kid. As a kid, I had muscles, I had a great build, I had a face and all that, you know, for whatever that's worth. You know, it was vanity, but more importantly, I had this enormous drive to compensate for how little I felt of myself. And the reason I felt so little is because nobody was nurturing enough to say to my sisters and myself when we were growing up, you're good, you're good. You know, nobody came to the friggin' baseball game to see me play. My father never saw me play football ever. And I played year after year after year, you know. I didn't have any parents watching me. Give me a break, you know. He was at the bar. And she, you know, she wanted me to do well, but she didn't know that world, you know, the world of, you know, and also travel and shit like that, you know, whatever. And I don't care. I am who I am, man. Here I am, 81 years old. I'm strong. Yeah. I made it up, you know, I made up for it. And that acting thing gave me a vehicle to prove myself, to prove my self-worth. Very neurotic, but fuck it. We all have, you know, a reason for doing what we're doing, you know? And, you know, if you're honest with yourself, sometimes, you know, it's not noble. It's just what it is, you know? I also grew up in a neighborhood that was my teammates, a lot of Jewish kids, and they had nurturing families from the outside, and I wanted to achieve. They were going to college, I'm going to college. That type of thing. They had good families and money, and We're talking Long Island, you know, these were families that kind of made it. And I loved going out with the Jewish girls. I got one tattooed to my leg. Yes.
Yeah.
Ellen Slobod, you know, I talk to her on the phone now.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and her father and mother forbade me to go out with her because I was a goyim. And and Barbara Brotley, she was my girlfriend, and her parents didn't want me to go out with her because I was a goyim, which made me even more determined because I was used to not feeling less than, to feeling less than, you know. And I love those Jewish girls. I really did, man. Yeah.
Thank
My
you.
wife is half Jewish, and I've been married to her for 31 years.
I have to ask you. All right.
What, baby?
It's a non-Jewish person. A goman?
A goyim.
Goyim.
A goyim?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, or a shiksa. I think a shiksa. I'm not sure.
No, it sounds right based on both their reactions. I'm the one
Yeah,
that
goyim.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I think
Thank you.
Shiksa is female, right?
I
Goyim
think
is male.
shiksa. I'm not sure.
I'm not
I think it's a Hebrew word.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Ray, can I get you a glass of water?
Say what?
You want a glass of water?
No.
Okay, cool. Okay. I'm going to have Kendra ask you a question.
Okay.
Some of my questions are in a different direction. Actually, can you tell me about some of the current books you've been reading?
Oh, I'm so happy you asked me that question. Frankel. What's his first name? I forget his first name. My memory, you know.
It's okay.
He wrote a book which I am reading a second time. He's the man who was put into Auschwitz. What the heck is his first name? Frankel is his last name. A wonderful, oh God, this book is so profound.
What's the title? Is it The Conversation?
Man's Search for Meaning.
Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah. Viktor Frankl.
Good job, Ray.
Oh, thank goodness.
Did you like run through your bookshelves in your brain and then you like sort through it, open the file, and you saw the name?
No.
No?
It just
I don't know
came to
what
her.
I did.
Where'd you go? Where'd you go finding it right now? What do you picture in your brain when we do that?
Well,
Like a
you
file
know what I
cabinet?
forget?
Yeah. It's like a file cabinet.
Well, I tell you, as I become older, I realize that we are a physiological phenomenon, and the function of the brain is chemical and neurological. And as I feel my brain getting a bit at loose ends, I realize that it's only a natural physiological phenomenon that has to do with old age, and I do forget. And I'm not alarmed. I don't have dementia. I don't have Alzheimer's. And I'm rather enjoying this period in my life. Being old is really kind of comforting. I'm not trying to screw girls, and I'm not trying to, whatever, and I feel I've had a good, decent existence, but my brain is not, Now, at the same time, having said all of that, I think I've probably done my best work during this period.
Cool.
On some level.
Cool.
When I talk about writing and I talk about painting, it's sort of interesting. There's a calmness that I feel that I didn't feel at some point in my life. It's a difference between being centered. I have felt I was centered at various times in my life, but calm, I wouldn't say. Now I feel a kind of patience with life. And it has to do with the knowledge that I'm really in the last chapter. And I'm a little bored, but I'm going to keep working. I'm going to keep writing, and I'm going to keep painting, and I'll probably do a little bit of acting here and there. I'm not doing my plays right now, which were a wonderful way to keep doing it. You know, I did that for something like 35, 40 years. Write my own play, perform it all over the country, you know, and keep myself in shape. I was in great shape, man, because I was on the boards all the time, you know. I'm letting that go, but I'm writing a novel in lieu of the plays, you know. Oh, the novel is cool too, man. It's about a guy, my kid was suspended from school for a semester for getting into a hassle over a pair of sneakers. Stupid. Long story short, he goes to he pays Craigslist, he pays a thing, rent, and he shows up and he finds out that the person who owns the apartment is a transvestite. So my kid gets horrified and skedaddles and leaves the rent. All right, dig this. I wrote a book where he stays with the transvestite because he's paid the rent, and the transvestite turns out to be one of the nicest people you ever want to run across. She buys the kid clothes for his job at an office while he's being suspended. She cooks for him meals. She gives him money when he's broke. You know, he's dumbfounded because she's so nice. And it's an education for the kid. And then the transvestite goes out one night and gets beaten up by some redneck bunch of people, and they really hurt her. They break her nose, her jaw, close her eyes. I mean, her body is all broken. And the boy still has 2 more months before he goes back to college, and he nurses this transvestite lady back to health, and they bond. And the book, if I can pull it off, is about the worth of people, the value of people, the humanity of people, the horrors of racism, the horrors of homophobia, and violent homophobia in this case. That people are people, you know, and you got to take a person from what they do, not what they look like, or you know what I'm saying. You know, it's a very common. But the question is, how do you pull it off? And you know, I'll tell you something, man. I think it'd be a great film. And I would love to play the transvestite.
Well, I think, too, it'd be really great to see, not only is this person helpful, but they're happy with who they are and how they're living. And that they're playing out, they're truly happy because they're, you know.
Mind you, there are passages in it that describe, her name is Antoinette, and she won't go out in daytime. Because there are too many comments.
Right.
You know, it's not like she's totally joyfully happy.
No, it's hard. It's a hard
She's
world.
also admits to the kid toward the end of the novel, you know, I have no one to talk to. I so value you being here. I've loved living with you. It's been really so rewarding for me. I don't have anyone in my life. No friends. No one with whom I can share an apartment. I'm so grateful you've been here. She says that. And, you know, it's just very difficult to be different
Yeah.
in any way, shape,
Yeah.
or form.
Yeah.
You know, now we're friggin', thank you, Mr. Trump, you know, the prejudice against Latinos, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Give me a friggin' break. You know, it's like, whatever. You get the point.
Yeah.
I forget what the original question was.
I went and threw a big curveball. She asked about what books you were reading, and then,
Oh.
and then I asked about like the memory bank and file cabinets and stuff.
So tell me more about
Let's
Viktor
switch seats.
Frankl
Let's switch seats.
Victor
Go ahead and sit right here.
and the man's
The
search
meaning
for...
of life,
Have a
man's
seat.
search for or the meaning of life, and it for the first part of the book is about his experience in Auschwitz, where they starve you and beat you, and they throw people in a gas chamber when they're no longer able to work, and they kill them. And he lost everyone in his family to the ovens. And he became a therapist. And now he has a therapy called logotherapy, which has to do with finding meaning in your life. Don't dwell on your neuroses. Focus on a tangible thing that means something to you. There are a number of categories, one of which is love. Do you want to live your life for your children, to bring them up and set them up in the world? That's one thing he talks about, love for children, love for one's work, creativity. I could identify with that, just from painting or writing or even making a character in a movie or writing a play or whatever. That's obvious to me. But it's not obvious for many, many people. A lot of people don't know what the heck that is, He talks about suffering, that one should be able to look beyond suffering. Now, when he was at Auschwitz, surrounded by suffering, and suffering himself. But when you get out of a camp like that, in my own case, I suffer, you suffer, everyone suffers. And I think one of the phenomena of old age is that you've been suffering mildly for so long that you get ready to cash it in and say, there's not too much in store for me. I'm 60 years old, and therefore I'm ready to go. I remember my mother using those words when she was 92. I said to her, Ma, what do you do? The TV was on, she was lying in bed, and she said to me, oh, you don't want to know. And she shook her finger at me and she said, you'll see someday, you'll see. And I knew she knew something at the age of 92 that I didn't. I was all, get up and go, you're 92, but the hell with that. You gotta do something. Where's your ambition, Mom? She knew more than I. She lived to 94, 94, and passed away. Full life, wonderful values, What did I say all that?
Yeah, the search for meaning.
Huh?
There's a meaning, like bringing meaning and values.
Value, meaning. Oh yeah, books. Now I'm reading The Choice, which I got interested in the concentration camp thing. The Choice is written by a woman named Agar, and it's about her being in a concentration camp and how she dealt with that. Hi, baby. And I'm also reading Ernest Hemingway's short stories. I'm about halfway through the book. I can't help thinking about the image of Ernest Hemingway, this kind of masculine writer-type person who went to bullfights and spent time in Spain and world traveler and was a hunter and a fisherman and kind of macho and so on. That's in the background of my thoughts when I read his short stories. And it's interesting because in reading his short stories, he's such an icon that I expected something highly unusual. And the writing is not any more unusual than my writing. What is unusual is the simplicity of it and the honesty. If he wants to write today, he'll write about fishing. Well, that's what he did yesterday. And he'll talk about, wading through a river and casting for trout. And the subject matter is mundane, but it's honest. There's something honest about his writing. And I get it, I really get it. There's nothing like, there's no flair or something that sparkles my eye or anything like that. He just says it. Simple sentences, very simple. It's the truth. What else am I? Oh, I'm reading Napoleon Hill's book called Conversation with the Devil. And that's very interesting. My son gave me that book. I'm reading all these books at once, by the way.
Does it mess with, like, when you jump back into that book, does it mess with you or no?
No.
Cool.
Here's what I do. I show up at my studio and I take my first hour to read and memorize.
Okay.
So if I start at 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock, I'll finish at 12. I'll start at 11, finish at 12, hypothetically, and I'll read 5 to 10 pages of Ernest Hemingway, mark off the page, put it aside, then I'll memorize. I'll give you a little bit of memorization. I'm memorizing a diary or a writing book. Okay, attention in my head. 18-year-old son giving me a difficult time. Won't work, won't get a job, won't do anything to please his father. I'm at a loss. I'm being dragged down into the abyss, this dark place with no exit. Some call it depression, but I don't call it that. I know what depression is. Deep depression, debilitating depression that grabs me by its talons and won't let go. Oh, shucks! It's all part of this thing called life. Hard life. Irritating life that takes the breath out of me. Trying so very hard to breathe through it all. I'm 81, for goodness sake, 81, and living my 82nd year as well as I can, trying to keep my head above water so I won't drown in my condition of sad, sad. I'm experiencing sad, sad, funny expression, sad, sad, funny expression. Only a short time remaining of life. 10 years, 20 at most. Met 2 people today, both with children, both parents. One from Arizona, a man, the other a woman. Good people. Important to communicate with people. Open up, start a conversation and be friendly. A positive way to meet the world with so little time left, so little time. What is time anyway, if not consciousness and willingness to do something with time? Have a purpose, create something that can be tangible, something that can be read, something that can be seen, a painting, a sculpture, anything made from the soul. My soul is my only solid possession with which I can interpret what lies before me. all stimuli that tell me this or that. Do with me what you wish, the world says to me. And I take permission to make art, some kind of art that tells me I once existed in this world. Stay detached from him, just stay detached, my wife says to him. Meantime, my son is going off the rails. Stay detached from him, just stay detached, my wife says. How can I stay detached? He's living under the same roof. It's only temporary. Only temporary. He's a grown man, for God's sake. That's enough.
I love it.
That's my diary.
Since I've heard it last time, you added on to it a little bit.
Well, I didn't get to that part.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, right.
You know. So
Yeah.
I remember I go over it every day on my
Love it.
car.
I love it.
Yeah. It's good for my brain. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to memorize it. You got to know it.
Does she need to go out, you think?
I walked her before we came.
Okay.
No,
Well,
we're
she
cool.
drank. She okay. I just wanted to follow. I don't know if that's a sign.
And she went both ways.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to,
She just saw me get all excited.
I know it happens with me and my dogs when I'm doing monologues.
Yeah.
I noticed she has a little bit of red on the left side of her mouth.
Yeah,
Is that
that's a
normal?
thing that she's taking antibiotics
Okay, good.
for,
Good.
and I have a spray that I give her. I don't know exactly what it's from, but it's something we're dealing with. We brought it to a vet.
Good.
Yeah, you saw that. It ruins your complexion.
Elyusha or Kendra, who would like to go next?
What's your next one?
On a roll.
Oh, okay.
Well, you talked about kind of like when you arrive at your art studio around 11 or 12. So what is like a typical day for you now, or your ideal day? How would you spend your day?
I wake up and I make our bed, and I clean up our bedroom. I wash all the dishes, and I clean up the kitchen. And sometimes I clean up my oldest son's room. Sometimes I do not. And then I check my emails. And then I put my shorts on and these moccasins, and I do 35 minutes on the stationary bike and break a sweat. And on that's 35 minutes, and then for another half hour I'll do presses with light weights like 70 pounds and curls and what else do I do there?
Squats.
Stuff like curls. What?
You do squats also.
I do squats, yeah. Squats are hard, and I've been doing them for years. Keeps my ass in shape.
Literally. Yeah.
And then after I finish all that, I go to my studio, and I'm writing this novel which I described to you about Antoinette and this boy, Robert. And I do that every other day, and every other day I paint. And the paintings are, like 5 feet high, 4 feet wide, they're big. And I'm literally alone, at least from 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I leave the studio at 8. Like, my wife is out of town, so I'll stay there till 9, and it's very regimented, but within the context of the order and the regimen of what I'm describing. I mean, let's face it, if you're in a space, a relatively small space, and you're actively engaged in painting a painting or writing, your mind is going through push-ups of the brain. You're working. you're not moving around much, but your thought process is under stress. Now, having said that, that's not necessarily true when it comes to painting. Painting is the most euphoric kind of involvement. You lose yourself. There's immediate gratification when you paint because you put a color on a canvas and right away it registers, red, orange, blue, whatever. And with writing, it's not as immediately gratifying. It's black marks on a white page. And it doesn't have that same lush solidity that a painting has. You put a paintbrush right away, wham! It's, you know, it's has its effect. Color specifically is so gorgeous, you know. You don't get that with writing. Writing is tough. What I do with writing is when I'm writing, I write longhand on sketchbooks. And I will say, I'm going to write for 5 hours today. I'll write for 5 hours longhand and try it someday. That is not easy. And what's so interesting about it is you break through after 2 hours or so. You gain momentum. You begin to zero in on a subject that really is important to you. The first hour, the first 2 hours, you're trying to find yourself. You're trying to find your center. What is it you want to speak about today? And if you hone in for a long enough time, what happens is fatigue makes you surrender. And once you surrender, your mind is on a flight. You just have to be patient. You got to struggle through it. It's like a guy who runs the mile. After, or better yet, the marathon, after the first couple of miles, you're just rolling. You're rolling. It's no longer about struggle. It's about relaxation. It's about embracing what's happening. The mind is the same way. When you go through the kind of hardship of just beginning a day's work of writing, particularly I write longhand because I like the muscularity. I like the connection with my body as opposed to working like this. After I get something, I'll transfer it into a computer. But there's something organically connected when I got the pen in my hand and I'm writing on the thing. It's tactile. It's quite a phenomenon, you know, all by yourself, with your thoughts and your own intelligence. And I love the idea of using one's brain for long periods of time in a focused fashion and trying to put what's going on in there into a form that works. You know, I love it. You know, I think, you know, I studied the Greeks when I was at Brown because I was a philosophy major. They had this notion, the golden mean, the balance between mind and body and spirit. And I never forgot that, and I still kind of like know what it means. When I'm in my studio, it's all about mind. And I'm there for a long time, and it's really quite wonderful. It's a very privileged existence, which I had to fight like holy hell for. But I've gotten a good 40-year run of it. And it wasn't easy, man, because, you know, most people, you get a job. And that's you know, it doesn't matter if you like the job, you got to make money. That's the way my father was, you know. And he didn't like his job. What, are you kidding me?
What did he do?
Bricklayer. You know.
Hard work.
Yeah, hard work. He knew how to lay brick, keep them in a straight line. And, you know, but it was limited, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Elyusha, you want to ask him a question?
One thing, just speaking about your parents, you mentioned in your writing that there were times that your parents would go out to a movie or a dinner together, and then they would come home, but you said that it seemed like it was a performance in terms of them in front of you guys, the way they would embrace or touch one another. You felt like it wasn't real. Did you know that as a kid, or is it going back in retrospect and saying that maybe it wasn't a real emotion, it was just them staging something for you?
It was very confusing because on one night, all three of us slept in the same room, my two sisters and I, when we were very young. Eventually built a dorm up on top. One night, we all three woke up to this, ah, right, a scream. And we get up, and we hear, you know, we go into their bedroom. They slept together at that time. My mother's covered with blood all over her face, all over her nightgown. She's on her knees, on the bed, like, ah! She's got this blood all over her. You can imagine, my sisters, one was 4 years younger than I, and another was 5 years younger than I, and I'm only 12. So you figure it out. And it was like, holy shit, you know, we're little kids, right? I'm 12. So then they go to the movies. A month later. Well, the trauma of what you experienced a month before is confusing. I would prefer that they were in a war zone together because it was clear what was going on. I remember one time, shit, man, I remember I was a kid, you know, and he's pulling the same old shit, he's drunk, and I'm young. I'm like 13 or something, I'm maybe 12, I don't know what the fuck I was. I jump up on his shoulder, he's drunk, and I pulled him down, he falls down on his back, you know. And I don't know what happened, I went to bed, whatever. The next morning, my mother is like, got this little smile on her face, like, and I'm wondering what the, she's smiling because I've protected her. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't like it. I felt I don't want to be caught between you two. It was so confusing to me. I didn't like it when they were nice to each other, because it was a big lie. I didn't know what to get used to. I got used to the war zone, and now they're all kissy-nicey. Give me a fucking break. You know, it was like so yin-yang, you know. I didn't know how to deal with it, you know. And before I was talking about being able to cut off feelings and focus on goals. That's the kind of conditioning that I was experiencing at that time to survive emotionally, you know. I became motivated. But to do it, to go ahead with it, go through it, I had to cut off emotionally.
Ray, you have an expression I saw in an interview about leaving your hand on the fire.
Oh, leaving your hand in the fire. That's sort of... When I started acting, I was not very good at it. And I wanted to be very good at it. And it was painful that I was so awful. And what was also compounding the issue of my lack of skill was that I had this athletic body. By the way, when I graduated from Brown, in a 3-day period, I was accepted at Yale Drama School and drafted by the Boston Patriots, which are now the New England Patriots. I was drafted. And the reason I was drafted was because the backfield coach at Brown knew Babe Corelli, who was the head coach at Boston, and recommended me, sent him film.
Awesome.
And I had to make a choice in 3 days. Now, why am I saying this? It had something to do with motivation and needing some kind of validation from the general public, the strangeness of an audience, to achieve, just to compensate for the war zone in which I grew up. You know, it was really so complicated in a way. And the only way I could do it was to cut off feelings and focus, you know. It's almost like a football player, if he's got a dislocated shoulder, he's in a lot of pain, and they haven't Novocained it, and you got to carry the ball and you get hit. Well, you got to focus on what's important. You don't fumble, keep your legs going, put the other shoulder down if some guy's going to hit you. You know, it's like very single-minded. You know what I mean? Regardless of obstacles. That's it. Regardless of obstacles, I will go there. I'll get myself into college. I will learn how to be an actor, even though I'm not very skilled. I will continue. I will continue. That's been the ingredient that has enabled me to friggin' survive. And then, once in a while, I'll lighten up a little bit, you know, I'll learn how, you know, and there were lessons. I said before, I'd never hit anybody. I'd never hit anyone in my family. You know, I went through a period of time where I got into fights, terrible, and when I was in high school. I didn't know any better. I saw my father doing this, you know, ridiculous. Nobody's an expert, you know. You're the expert of your own life. You know when you're messing up.
Yeah.
And you know when you did something you shouldn't have. You know.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Thank you, Ray. That's do you guys want to segue to another question? I have questions from people from the podcast for you. I posted your picture saying we're gonna have Ray on the podcast. Does anybody have questions? And I have those.
James, let's have you sit here. I'm gonna take a bathroom break.
Ooh, I'm sitting next to Elyusha. You go, Elyusha. Wait a second. What's this shirt, right?
Michael Douglas?
Keep going. Keep going. What's it from?
Wall Street.
No, keep going. It's for I wore it for today.
Is it Michael Douglas?
Yeah.
I got that?
Yeah.
It's not Wall Street?
I'll give you a hint. It also has Robert Duvall in it.
Oh, I worked with Robert Duvall.
What movie?
What movie? Oh, was I in that
Yeah,
movie?
you were, dude. You were in Falling Down
Oh, yeah, Falling Down. I
With
played
Joel-
Robert Duvall's boss.
with Joel Schumacher directing it.
Yes.
Yeah. And I usually would wear something nice in this attire, but I wanted to wear a shirt of a film that you were in to honor you being here today.
Oh.
Yeah. And you went to the dry cleaner for this shirt, right?
Yeah, I remember that. I had to say to Robert Duvall, you know, I don't like you.
Yeah, you don't curse.
Because you don't curse. Not a shit or a fuck. Yeah.
You know, Prendergast, I gave you that speech earlier because, like I said, that's regulations. They make me do it. This one is from me. I've never liked you. You want to know why? You don't curse. I don't trust a man who doesn't curse. Not a fuck or a shit in all these years. Real men curse, Prendergast. And I especially don't like a man in my command who's afraid to hit the street. It's bad for morale.
I'm not afraid to hit anything, okay?
Get back behind that desk where you belong. And don't waste any more of my time pretending you're a cop.
I get along with him, actually. Oh, you know what he did?
What's that?
This is all coming back to me.
Hit me with it.
After I finished my last scene, all of which were with him, he said, hold on a minute. After I said, I'll see you, nice working with you. He said, wait a minute. He goes over and he makes a phone call to a famous director, and I forget the director's name, and he talks about me to the friggin' director. He said, this guy is really good and you should work with him. And he's good, you know, they talked a little bit.
Yeah.
And he hangs up and he looks up at me and he said, you know who that is? And he told me who it was, which I forget. And it was a famous director.
Yeah, yeah.
And he said, he'll use you. He'll use you.
Incredible.
This is Robert Duvall.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Milos Forman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you know?
Sometimes I just guess.
No, we prep for, you know, I knew it in the back of my head, and yeah, like we.
That's who it was. He called up Milos Forman in my behalf.
That's awesome. It must have been weird to. You were kind of, your character was having to kind of boss Robert Duvall's
Yeah,
character
push him
around.
around.
And what an interesting dynamic, because I'm sure, you know, you just have the utmost respect for him, and, you know, that dynamic is probably very interesting for you as an actor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When I've seen the stuff I did with him,
Yeah.
and it works.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And I do look like I'm
Yeah.
a mean ass.
The high and low, the way it was
Yeah,
shot.
and
you know?
he moves his. I get close to his face, and he moves out like that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it was okay. I wasn't so intimidated that I didn't do what had to be done.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but I did feel a pecking order of power
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
He
right.
had the power.
Right.
You know,
How was the director, Joel Schumacher?
he was cool.
Cool. Yeah.
You know, he had seen me in something else. I forget what it was.
Okay.
But he gave me entree into the environment of his
Yeah.
film, and he obviously liked what I had done in something,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
These guys were movie people. They had never seen me in any theater or anything like that, you know.
Yeah.
It was a cool shoot,
Awesome.
you know, falling down, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Falling down.
Yeah. I wouldn't have guessed that.
It's cool. Yeah.
You got Michael Douglas right away, though. That's pretty good.
Yeah, you did.
I did get
You
Michael
got it right. You got
Douglas.
it right away.
And I don't know how come I got that, but because, you
Something in
know,
the back of your mind.
something with the briefcase. I may have seen his picture with a briefcase, you know, either Wall Street or, well, falling
Yeah,
down.
in the movie, the briefcase, he uses it to like beat people and whatnot. So maybe it was memorable for that reason.
Is that true?
But
I don't even remember.
Shun, he was involved in the set. He lives in Japan right now, but he was involved during production when we were filming.
I remember.
Yes, he's the man. You guys were tight. He was on his own watching Falling Down with his family, and wasn't watching it because he knew you were in it. And then he said when you popped up, he fell over. He couldn't believe it, and he had to like tell his family. He had to show footage of the filming of Filthy
This all
Animals.
happened in Japan?
Yeah, isn't that cool, man?
They probably had a dubbed voice.
They did. I always ask. I go, "Are you doing the subtitles or is it dubbing?" I always have to ask. Yeah. I know. It was really cool. Yeah, you pop up in all kinds of stuff, right? It's awesome.
I just got fan mail from Germany.
Really?
Yeah.
For what roles?
Oh, I don't know.
Sweet. Sweet.
5 photographs that they want me to sign.
Oh.
I get this stuff,
Oh, cool.
you know.
Yeah.
And here's what's interesting. The photographs, one of them, I look great in it. I don't look like that anymore, you know. But I show it to my wife. I say, you know, you want to keep any of these?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because I should look so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but she didn't generate that much interest, so I think I'll sign them all and mail them back. I'll mail them back.
That's awesome.
They send them in an envelope with postage on the envelope, and you don't have to. All you have to do is sign them.
It's awesome. It's awesome.
You know, I think the main question is. It is kind of weird. It's not weird. It's gratifying. It's like, oh, people want my autograph. Oh, isn't that what I was searching for when I was 22 years old? Isn't that what I wanted? Yeah. But is that what I want now? Now, that's interesting. You know, I don't know exactly what I want. I want to live to 100. And I'd like to look good for my age.
You're already doing that gracefully, Ray.
For 100 years old, I want to look cool.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I'll be a little wrinkled.
Ray, when you're 105, I'll still have you in my movies, and if you're like in bed, I'll just get your audio. You can narrate the film.
You know, I'll tell you something, babe. I smoke.
Still?
Yeah.
Oh, you've been doing great today. You need a smoke break or what?
I wouldn't smoke here.
You did. You have.
Have I?
Yeah. It's
During
okay.
the shoot.
It's all right, man. We have ashtray. I smoke joints. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, when I'm around people, I don't smoke.
Got it.
I
Got it.
smoke in my studio.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
when I'm thinking about something, I'm trying to get something, you know, done or something, or I take a break or
Yeah.
whatever. I shouldn't, perhaps, but it's a Jones. It's a real Jones, you know.
Yeah.
And whatever.
Yeah.
It's not good, but I do it. And I don't know if I'll ever break it. I started smoking on purpose. I didn't have to smoke, but I wanted to break something. I wanted to break, I don't know, something. I was too friggin' healthy. I just felt too, everything was too right.
Yeah.
And I was young enough to fall for it. I was like 24 or something like that.
When you're, this is like totally off the, you as an actor, as you as an athlete, what was your diet like?
I ate normal.
Okay.
I didn't think about it too
Okay.
much. When you're on a college football
Yeah.
game, they have a training meal,
Good.
which was usually meat and potatoes,
Cool.
steak,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Now, my wife is like on my case. I only get meat once in a while if I'm a good boy. I salad every night.
Right.
sweet potato.
Right.
Because sweet potato is better than normal potato because it's good for your lungs or some bullshit. I don't know what
It has more nutrients, more beta carotene and other things.
Is that right?
Antioxidants, yeah.
Well, I have those, and I'm not fussy about food, so I just eat, and I appreciate that somebody's making a meal for me every night.
Yeah.
I call when I leave the studio, I'm coming home, and there's a salad and a potato waiting for me, maybe 2 potatoes.
That's a good wife.
Yeah.
That's a really good wife.
And yeah, it works,
Elyusha, do you want to ask another
I
question?
have a question that is kind of related to the, you said you had to break something with the smoking, that you felt maybe you were too healthy, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? And in your writing, you mentioned that your mom believed that instability was the source of her creativity,
Right.
not being stable. And then you said that you started to question that theory yourself
Yeah.
as you kind of got older.
Yeah.
And you said you still wonder if artists can live well balanced lives. Do you think that's still true for you?
That's really an interesting question.
Strong word.
Look, I think you take a guy like Pablo Picasso, Matisse, they had exemplary lives. They lived long lives and healthy lives, and they were productive. As opposed to Vincent van Gogh, Jackson Pollock, both of whom were tortured men. Toulouse-Lautrec, Soutine. Now, in the case of Van Gogh, he died so young and produced an enormous amount of work in that length of time. Picasso lived into his 90s and produced an enormous amount of work and started an entirely new movement, as did Van Gogh. One was an impressionist, the other was a cubist. Wouldn't it have been nice if Van Gogh didn't kill himself? But he couldn't help it. And Soutine killed himself. And I dare say he couldn't help it either. And sometimes a flash in a pan like that changes the way people see, the way they see. Like Van Gogh started painting in a way that hadn't been done up to that point. There were simmerings, the Impressionists were happening, but he began to break it loose. And Pollock, my God, he threw paint onto the canvas. But this was a tormented man who drank too much and eventually killed himself by smashing his truck into a pole or something. And wouldn't it be nice if he lived longer? I don't think there's any pat answer. But the drive to be creative is so off the beaten path of what one usually does to survive. Get a job, make money. No, that's not the way an artist thinks. Make art. is the way an artist thinks. I'm going to make art. And when I talk about art, I'm talking about being an actor, I'm talking about being a filmmaker, I'm talking about being a painter, a dancer. Make art. A writer. Make art. And then make money, enough to sustain yourself. And that's the common bond between a neurotic artist who's in a great deal of pain and a more balanced personality that will live a long life and have a rational approach to life, but still is making, Willem de Kooning would be an example of that. Beautiful, beautiful painting. Started a whole new movement, abstract expressionism. Painted it until he was in his late 80s. Had a wonderful life. Certainly wasn't desperately unhappy or prone to committing suicide the way Van Gogh was. You know, the criterion of an artist is what they produce, not how happy they are.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, the fact is, everybody's got this little grumbling going on inside their mind about what the heck is this thing called life. Everybody's a little bit unhappy, a little bit in disagreement with what this experience is. Oh, do I have to get up again and do the same goddamn thing again? Oh, I gotta go to work. God, you know, I mean, nobody gets out of this, man. It's, you know, you gotta work out a philosophy of your own life. It's very personal.
You ready? You got one?
Oh, go ahead. I mean, you have some.
You ask it the way you wrote it. I love the way you wrote it. We got one for you, man.
So this is, again, kind of tapping back into something further, but it is relatable to today, and I think that's why I wanted to hear your response. Manhattan's Pier 28, working the evening of MLK's assassination, and you working side by side with your black co-workers, and you being white and them being black, and you said that those dignified, saddened black men whose leader had been killed by someone of my race left an indelible imprint upon my understanding of racism in America. Number one, obviously that moment, describe it, but then what do you think the progress has been since then in terms of how do you think the country has evolved from that day of MLK's assassination through your experience to obviously present day?
What are you looking at? You know, I don't think progress has been made. I think the same racism exists. There are laws now. The lynchings don't happen. In the right circumstance, I think lynchings would happen. But, you know, you got these white supremacist groups in this country that are thriving. They have their peers who give them support. We have elected officials who get their vote. And this country is emblematic of racial hatred. This country, which began with slavery. My God, The fact that we would actually engage in slavery? What? But we did it. And then Jim Crow afterwards, and today, there's dialogue happening today vis-a-vis the George Floyd killing, which is not atypical of what happens in the United States. But people reacted to that, and there seems to be some highlighting of the issue at this point in time. I see it on television. I mentioned before, I see a lot of actors, black actors, in TV series and commercials, and there's more hiring of black people in the media lately. Whether that's going to change, I don't know. You know, I remember civil rights. What happened? It's the same old bullshit going on. You know, police killing black people. It's absolutely disgusting. And I forget what the original question was.
You answered it. I think the first part I would like to know is if you can paint a picture of that day or that night that you were working among
Oh,
us.
yeah.
What were some of the emotions or things that you...
Yeah, I'll tell you what happened that night.
Yeah.
I was working down Pier 28, and it was a black pier. You see, what happened was that during the civil rights, they forced the Longshoremen's Union to integrate. So what do? They put all the black guys down on Pier 28, and therefore the same segregation exists. The white dudes are uptown, and the black dudes are on Pier 28. So, next thing, it's a fruit pier. The stuff that comes in, the freight that comes in is fruit from South America. Next thing, they got too much freight coming in to handle the number of black dudes that they are willing to bring into the union, the Longshoremen's Union. So they let hippies have temporary longshoreman cards like me. I had long hair then. I was a hippie. It was hippie time. And what happened was I got work down there on Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights, and I could make a lot of money. I could make my nut Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights. You start at 7 o'clock and you finish 7 in the morning, unloading freight. And it's hard work, you know, those boxes are heavy, man, you know. Well, Martin Luther King gets shot, and I go to work, and I'm the only white guy who shows up. No other white dudes showed up. So here I am at one of the most profound moments in black history when Martin Luther King has been shot to death, their leader. And I'm surrounded by these black men working with him side by side. And I'm hearing, "White cracker." That's what they do. They just kill you. White cracker, motherfucker. I hear all this. They're not referring to me. I'm there. Jesus. They're crying. There are men crying with tears coming down their face. It was fucking profound. It was just too much. And I worked. You know, you get down, you see when you work, they put these freight cars, train cars on barges, 6 of them on every barge. And you have to get inside the freight inside the train car. These are real train cars. They're huge. They weigh tons. And you go inside there, and they got rollers, and you throw the boxes onto the rollers. And the boxes are big. They weigh about 70 pounds, and they're full of fruit. And the body, your body is like this, boom, and you like throw them down, like that. That's how your body is all night. And you got two guys in the back, and the guy at the roller, and then the guy picking up the box at the bottom of the roller, and then they put it on a little go-kart, and they bring it to a stack, and more guys are hacking, you know. And these guys are crying and making comments, and I'm the only fucking white man on the whole pier. I'm the only guy who showed up. And it was memorable, and I'm glad I did that. They were afraid because there were riots in New York. And a lot of violence was going on. You know, wrecking buildings and breaking windows and, oh boy. Yeah, you know, and I don't know. You know, I would say my best friend is black, man. Tony Williamson. I don't know what to think, man. I really don't know.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, that was a great answer. Thank you for answering the question. You wanna? How are you guys? How are you doing? We're doing okay. I'm just checking on. Are you doing okay, Ray?
Do you need a break?
Now what?
Do you need a break? Would you like to take a break?
A break. If I had a cigarette, I would. But nobody smokes here.
No.
No, I'm all right.
Okay.
I'd like to hear Elyusha get on the roll with his questions because they're all kind of similar.
Yeah. Do you want to start a theme right now?
What? I think.
I got something.
What did you read about that in some essay or something? I wrote an essay about it, right, Matt?
Is your own writing, yeah. It's about your mom, where you talk about going to see her.
Yeah.
And it triggers a lot of memories.
Oh.
You cover a lot of different things, and your
Right.
upbringing, and then your
Right.
acting. And
You should read my book.
I'm ready.
The whole motherfucking book.
I will. I enjoyed reading this alone, so I will.
Yeah. Whatever.
I have a couple questions from our followers from the podcast. We'll just kind of knock those out. Ray, this question is for you. Who is the most difficult, challenging actor to work with? This is from James Mendez.
The most difficult, challenging actress. Oh.
Or actor.
I'll tell you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or actor.
Yeah, male or female.
Well, the first thought that hit my mind was not because of her so much, but more because of me. But she was difficult for me. Geraldine Page. I did Hamlet with her. She played Gertrude, and I played Laertes, and Rip Torn played Hamlet. And it was a cast of very highfalutin cast, very good actors. And Geraldine Page, give me a break. She was like the most brilliant actress in the world. You know, I mean, she was unbelievable. And she was scary. I was afraid of her. And she was married to Rip Torn. And Amy Wright was playing Ophelia. And Amy Wright and Rip Torn were having an affair. And Rip Torn was married to Geraldine Page, who was the world's greatest actress in the world. I mean, she was like so highly regarded. I guess, you know, she did on Broadway. the Tennessee Williams thing, Chance, I forget what it was called. But I was afraid of this woman because I worshipped her. I didn't know what the hell am I on the same stage with this woman, this brilliant genius of an actress, and she was so eccentric. She had this voice, Rip, I don't understand this line. You know, they lived theater. They had a daughter. I think they had a couple of kids. I don't know. Renee was one of the children, and they were so overpowered, these children, by the parents. You know, both of them were so heavyweight, and Renee was, you know, she was hoping she wouldn't drop the hemlock, and you know, it's like it was so sort of like, child, it's okay, and I'll take care of you, you know. But I had this speech I had to do as Laertes, which went something like, "Oh, Rosa May, dear maid, kind sister, sweet Ophelia, oh, heavens, is possible a young maid's wits should be as mortal as an old man's?" I forget the rest. That is the emblematic moment of my experience of playing Laertes.
Awesome.
With Rip Torn and Geraldine Page. Don't fake it in front of those two.
Good stuff.
If you're not crying or feeling it, don't feel it. Just say the motherfucking word. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It'll be honest.
Who was more fun on set during Justified? Timothy Oliphant or Walter Goggins? As he played Arlo Givens. Oh, just say it, Ray. I know you're...
Neither one of them were fun, but I had fun because I knew what I was doing. I showed up at work, I wasn't all uptight, I knew what I was doing, and these guys were young, and neither one of them were really fun.
Cool.
But the shoot was fun.
Cool.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, when I think about people who were fun to work with, I think about people like Shami Chaikin, you know, and people that made me laugh, and people who were really kind of cool to be around, you know. Neither one of those guys would like that.
Cool, man. You're the man.
I wouldn't even want to get high with them. You know, I don't get high.
I know.
No, I know. You stopped everything at 40.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're the man.
I know what it is to get high.
Yeah. This one's from. He's also in our film Filthy Animals. He played a sexual predator in the film, just like you. This question is from Pete Larney. Pete Larney asked, "Can Pete come watch you paint?"
Yeah.
Okay. There you go, Pete. This next one is from my mom. What was it like to play a sexual predator in the movie Filthy Animals, and what was it like to be directed by me?
Enjoyable.
Thank you, Ray. Cool.
No hassle. The issue of being a sexual predator, I didn't struggle and strangle myself with, oh, I have to embody a sexual predator, I'll look at every little girl, whatever. I didn't go through all that.
Yeah.
You know what I do now much better? I believe it. Because when sexual predators are behaving through a day, sexual predator, I'm a sexual predator, I'm a sexual predator, they say, oh, I think I'll get some orange juice, or I'll cook some eggs for myself, or, gee, I have to take the dog for a walk. They got a life. And then comes an event where they accost some young boy or something, and that is what makes them a sexual predator. When they're in the act of doing something that normal people would be horrified at, they go through a logical sequence of events where they say, first I have to be nice to this little boy. Next, I have to entice him with some ice cream or something they want. Yeah. Next, geographically, we can't be out here. We have to be in my apartment. They have a logic going on, but they're not judging themselves and saying, oh, I'm a horrible person. That may be a moment later on. But people who do bad things, they are like me. There is a logic. I had to get the dog here. I had to bring a leash. I had to clear it with you before I brought him. I have to keep my shit together because I'm doing a podcast. I have things. I got to find my way here. I came on La Cienega. The first time I did it on Santa Monica Boulevard, I wasn't sure if the exit 42A was going to I go too far. You know, all these logistical. This is what we think when we're trying to accomplish a task. And if the task is bad, a bad thing, that's at the end. But getting there requires a logic that is no different from you or me.
Cool. Good.
And then, you know, later on, there's guilt, there's punishment, there's therapy. You take each beat for what it is. I'm in a doctor's office now trying to straighten my head out, you know, and I speak accordingly. Do you understand?
Very cool. Let's take 5 and order food and order lunch, and then we'll just do a couple more questions to wrap, and then we'll hang out for a little bit.
Okay.
Is that okay with you, Ray?
Yeah.
Okay. And I can see if Billy needs to go out if you want. I could take her to the back real quick.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Okay.